So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Book Club of California for our in-person and online program titled, We Are All in It Together, Power of the Press. Thank you for joining us here in San Francisco and for joining us virtually on Zoom tonight. My name is Kevin Kosick, and I'm the Executive Director for the Book Club of California, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all and get this show started tonight. We have 25 people actually registered to join us in person here in the club rooms, and over 100 folks registered to join us on Zoom. So for those of you who might be new to the Book Club of California, we are a nonprofit member and donor supported organization that is dedicated to preserving and promoting the history of the book and the book arts. Oftentimes, we do that with a focus on the history and the literature of California and the West. The book club publishes limited edition, finely made books, a scholarly journal called the Quarterly Newsletter, and our keepsakes. We host a year-round series of programs and exhibitions, like the one this evening, on topics including fine printing, design, typography, bookbinding, collecting, history, and much, much more. Now, if you're not a member of the book club, or if your membership has lapsed and you're interested in what we do, please consider joining our century-long tradition. Our membership dues are modest, but the benefits are many, and we simply can't do the work of the book club without the support of our members and our donors. So I encourage you to visit us online at bccbooks.org to join or to donate to the Book Club of California. And now for tonight's program and our presenter. The program is titled, We Are All in It Together, Power of the Press. And our presenter is letterpress printer, artist, and instructor, Thea Sizemore of Kavamore Press. As founder of Kavamore Press, a custom letterpress and design studio in South Berkeley, Thea works with private clients and various artists to create ephemera for projects, including some for the Carpenter Center for the Arts at Harvard, the Guggenheim, and the SF MoMA. In recent years, Thea's personal work has focused on projects that use the power of print to connect and engage community, including a mail art project called Social Media Snail Mail, which you'll learn about tonight, which is an ongoing series of free letterpress posters, and public printing protest events. And examples of her work can be found at kavamorepress.com. Tonight, Thea will talk about a social print project that is geared toward elevating the voices of the community. Now, this project began early in the pandemic, providing an immediate and meaningful social justice service for the general public through protest poster production and distribution. A neighbor gifted a defunct newspaper box, which was then upcycled for the project, and Fresh Prints box was born. What happened after that is the beauty of human nature: connection at a distance, community growth through the power of the press. Now, using traditional equipment from the 1900s, hand-set type, and ink on paper, Thea Sizemore has been able to build a new kind of social media that is tethered to the rich history of the printing press. Thea has brought some examples of the posters that she's going to be talking about this evening, and she'll discuss the working methods and, most importantly, share how interactions with strangers brought light to dark pandemic period and started a long-term art practice. Now, if you have questions for our speaker, you can use the chat and the Q&A function on Zoom. We will have time at the end of the presentation to take questions from the in-person audience and from those joining us virtually. And we'll use the chat and the Q&A on Zoom to do that. So now it's my great pleasure to stop talking for so long and introduce our speaker for this evening, letterpress printer, artist, and instructor, Thea Sizemore.
Hi, I'm Thea Sizemore. I've already been introduced, so you know who I am. Thank you all for joining us here in the room and then also on Zoom. Here's a couple of pictures to get us started. And right here, this is a picture of myself and my husband, Patrick. People often ask, why is it Kavamore Press? And the answer is that he's Kavanaugh and I'm Sizemore. So together we're Kavamore. And so it was a natural progression for our print shop to be called Kavamore Press. So it's a small family-owned studio in South Berkeley, where we do have a lot of equipment. We have lots of different printing presses. We have a couple of Vandercooks. We have a CNP floor platen. We have a sign press. We have a few tabletops. But just a really small little shop in South Berkeley, nestled in a neighborhood, which I am pleasantly surprised now that things have progressed over these last couple of years. We've been in Berkeley about 10 years. How much we've really been embraced by the neighborhood in these last couple of years. So here's a couple shots of the studio. So here you can see the Vandercook and the CNP. And I thought I'd start with just a little bit of work, just a few images of the work that we've been doing. This would be, some of it's very current and some was maybe before the pandemic. This is a lot of very fine printing, mostly with the photopolymer plate. I do a lot of hand illustration work. And I'm very kind of like old-fashioned. I like to work with pen on paper, sometimes even doing hand painted separations. So that's what you see here. And again, these are drawings that I would have done. And so this is a lot of commercial work. The bottom image of the bridge is actually printed with Legos. I've been doing a lot of Lego printing of lately. So this is the type of work I've been doing for probably close to 20 years, maybe a little over, if I'm truly honest. But things really changed when the pandemic hit. So you'll see that work as we're going through. So these are some artist projects that I've been working on in recent years. I've done a number of projects with an artist named Zoltron, which have been particularly fun. And then Mundane Times was one that happened in Berkeley with artist Kate Pokrass. So when 2020 hit, everybody's world got turned upside down, and mine did also. A lot of my professional work was on hold. Not very many events happening, which was, probably where a lot of my bread and butter comes from, is like event printing. So things really shifted for me, and I could not have ever predicted how they would shift. So it's been a really interesting journey. So the first thing that occurred to me was this project that I've been thinking of. We're deep in the pandemic, it's like, what are we all doing? We're all, washing our groceries at home. We're, having FaceTimes with our family members and friends that we wish we could see. And I remembered this idea that I had for a snail mail project. And so I quickly got to work and started making some stamps. So these are actually, stamps that you can actually use and put on your letter. So I designed and had those printed for me. And then right here is the envelope. So this project's kind of interesting. It's a combination of taking things from social media, from the internet, and then printing it and putting it on a postcard. So here, we have the social media meme here, which is actually my dog, who really did eat my flower during the early part of the pandemic, the precious flower that we were all, saving. So, and then scrap paper, which all printers have tons of, trim pieces. So that became the social media snail mail. So I pulled out some drawers of handset type and began this process of, you know, engaging the community online, asking people to submit funny things that they saw on the internet, funny memes, and then hand setting them and making a postcard. Now, the people who, if I selected their quote, I would then mail them a set of the postcards. So the idea is they'd have the postcards and then they would then be sending them out. So it's like, I really enjoyed the like humor of something coming from the internet, like this form of social media that became this other form of social media in this tangible, real way in the world. And so here, once I had these postcards, I was, during the pandemic, I was starting to take them to the Compound Gallery, has this great art box, which I would bring postcards and drop them off, and then people could come and pick them up. So, and then the contributor, I would get their mailing address. I would mail them a set of postcards. And so these are just a few of the, you know, really, I mean, very humorous, you know, postcards. This one was my favorite. Soon we'll need to go hunting to eat. I don't even know where lasagna lives. Gonna ask my mama if that offer to slap me into the next year is still on the table. And so also you'll see I'm noting how many likes, like the heart is like how many people had liked that social media post. And then the @ is like the person that originated the quote. And of course, with any typesetting, there are mistakes. And so, you know, I really embrace this, and I would post these, repost again about my mistakes. And so it's kind of just this fun way to engage with the community. I really enjoyed how people were just sending me all the quotes and, you know, for these funny little postcards. So I did one of these a day for almost 2 months. That's a lot of postcards. It was really enjoyable. I was having a great time. I think the community was really enjoying it too. But then something happened. We lost George Floyd, and everything changed again. And I think there was a, you know, there was a huge uprising across the country when George Floyd was murdered. Everyone felt they needed to do something. So people took to the streets, protesting, making signs, doing what they could to support Black lives, to get the voice out, to be loud, to be heard, to change things. Every newspaper, you know, across the country, I mean, all the news coverage, this is what they're talking about. And I mean, it's just, everybody is, I mean, the emotions are high. Like we're all just really feeling George Floyd. We're not feeling these social media memes right now. So suddenly I felt this, I just couldn't make these postcards anymore. Like it just didn't, I didn't feel light anymore. I didn't feel like having a good time and laughing. So this was the first poster that I made for protest purpose. And so you'll see a sign here at Malcolm X Elementary School, which is around the corner from our shop. And I set up a little free poster pocket there where people could come and pick up their own poster. So this was a way that I felt I could engage, I could help. And it felt good to have purpose, to use my equipment to elevate voices that needed help, to give people something proud, something good that they could hold up and feel good about. And it was really magical to just start to see them floating through the community. And a lot of printers were doing this. It was really a meaningful time, of a powerful time. The Printers Against Racism came together. I'm going to say there are probably more than 70, artists and printers participated in this fundraiser. Everybody worked with what equipment they had, printing in a way that, brought them some power in their work. Rick Griffith in Denver, also working. Allison at Globe Mica produced some posters. I mean, people all over the country were engaged and working. Val at Bowerbox, Ben Blount. I loved his, Ben made this whole installation of all of these posters, and it was really just powerful to see this coming up online. So, this is coming towards, everywhere I'm looking, I'm just seeing more and more contributions. And of course, I kept printing. I kept making posters. And I started putting a box out in front of my shop. And this was the first iteration. So it was just a cardboard box, and I would set it out there and I would make a post about it. Come get your protest posters. And then, as Kevin mentioned, a neighbor gifted us a newspaper box. And so I went to work creating the Fresh Prints box. So at least I'd have a nice, safe place for the prints to be, and people would feel like they could come and pick up the prints easily. And then this was amazing. People started communicating by hanging things in the windows. And we were seeing this a lot through the pandemic. And we all remember the teddy bear in the window, and the kids would go and walk around and see the teddy bears. Well, this was starting to take another form of communication. People would put the poster up, and you knew, I'm in solidarity with this person, this neighbor. They are aligning with me. And it was really just satisfying as you walk through the neighborhood to see these posters appearing. I really enjoyed this one. Was you could turn it either way and have the phrase be different. And of course, continuing to post, and people would come and pick up posters to take them to their protests. And then I had a little return to the social media snail mail. So I made the Say Their Names and protest by mail. And so this was sort of the last part of the social media snail mail project for now. Who knows, maybe it will be reborn another time. And this was part of a fundraiser. So I sold these postcards, and people could then mail, the postcards for protest. And then the proceeds went to support Black Lives Matter initiatives. This was one of the first posters where I actually engaged the community. I posted, what should the next poster be? And one of my neighbors, Danny, suggested this Doc Rivers quote. And so I was able to make this into a poster. And then here's just a slide about the fundraising effort. And I was able to turn the We Are Not Free poster into a t-shirt and sold those also for fundraising purposes. So as we know, freedom of the press is a First Amendment right. And I am not the first person to think of this. And there's a really rich history of people using the printing press to elevate voices, to change opinions, to get their voice out, starting in the way back. And I'm not going to give a whole lot of history here because there's many historians at the book club and beyond that are much more capable of the history. But Martin Luther was one of the first, and he really used the printing press. He was the first to use the printing press in this way. The suffragettes were making posters and pamphlets to promote voting rights. Victory gardens were producing posters to encourage people to plant their own gardens. And of course, the civil rights, the 60s are rich with people actively working in print shops, sometimes after hours, to elevate the voices. Vietnam War protest posters. And of course, my personal favorite, the Riot Girls with their self-publishing flyers. Also during this time, I was acquiring a lot of wood type. I connected with the Hicks brothers. Many of you may know them. And Norman Hicks' wife, Bonnie, happened to have a little collection of wood type. So I started going down there every couple of weeks to help her sort the type. She'd give me batches of it. It was all jumbled, and I'd bring it back to my studio and I would start sorting it. And I kind of hoped that maybe I would, acquire a couple cases of the type. And so as this went on, I'd keep going and I'd acquire another case and another case. And then finally, I just came to terms that I had to have it all. So I was able to acquire Bonnie Hicks' entire type collection, which was probably, I'm going to say 18 to 20 cases of wood type, which for me was a game changer. So at this point, you're going to see, and you may not have even noticed, that all of the wood type that was used in previous posters was all one font. And at this point, you're going to notice that other fonts start to become available. And that's because of this collection that I was able to acquire. So here, also, keeping the social media thing going, which do you prefer, zombie with blood or without blood? Seems like people 73% preferred the blood splatter on their, Halloween posters. So here's some of the posters are starting to get a little lighter, although we still have some political agendas. So, I'm starting to play with other topics. I made some voting postcards. Of course, the voting initiative was pretty big. We're starting to come back in person. So I'm started to host events in my studio. And this was kind of a turning point in my studio where I was able to open the door and have people come in to the studio. Before that, it was like, I'm in here in this room, I'm doing my printing in here, sort of leave me alone. I'm a professional printer in here. And now there's like it's starting to happen, the shift to community. I thought this would be interesting too. This is one of the Hope posters that I did as part of a print exchange. And here is a picture of some furniture that I actually use. Furniture is usually used to lock up the type when you're printing. And in this case, I've used it to actually print a texture. So I'm actually printing with the tools used to lock the type up. And there's other artists that are also involved in the print box. And these are some of them: Sharon Kallenberger, Mary Mortimer, Yael, Rachel Kern. These are all artists that have contributed to the Fresh Prints box. So anyone is welcome to bring work and have it in the Fresh Prints box for distribution. The only requirement is it has to be free and given out of generosity.
Are they all local Berkeley people?
Yeah, these are all local Berkeley or Oakland people. This was a print that I did for the Oakland School District. They've had massive issues with cutting schools. And so this was specifically for a protest for the Oakland School District. Of course, supporting my Berkeley BUSD teachers. So this was a poster that I was able to make and bring to school for Teacher Appreciation Day. When they were still having remote classes, they could all kind of have something that made them feel appreciated even when they weren't with their students directly. So I'm just going to move through some of these posters just to give you a taste of some of the things that have been printed. You know, it's usually a combination of things that are either politically or social justice driven, or things that I find personally inspiring. I think I might have to do a reprint of the thoughts and prayer actual policy change, because we still haven't had any policy change on gun control. So, and then we move to some of the workshops. So this is a workshop that I had at Kala that was sort of a related workshop. This is Words to Live By. And so the project in the middle, nothing is impossible, I'm possible, was a group collaborative project. And then the Don't Mess with Trans Kids was a student project. But this is starting to engage more people in the making of the work. And I'm finding more and more the engagement with people is actually a different drive, you know. And for me, making a lot of this work is not, I mean, I do a lot of fine printing, and this is sort of what I would kind of call more like slapdash, you know, quick printing. It doesn't have to be super refined. And so for me, it's like kind of liberating. But then also to be working, designing on press with other people is, I'm finding is really meaningful. This was actually specifically a group of neighbors that contacted me and wanted to, you know, come and make a poster with their neighbors, which I thought was pretty amazing. And you know, it's these little moments where, like, you know, when I host an event and someone comes to the event and they're like, well, I always come. And I was like, well, what do you mean you always come? And they're like, well, anytime you post that you're putting something out in the Fresh Prince box, I come. And I was like, oh, are you a neighbor? And they were like, no, I live in Oakland. And I was like, just, oh, wow. You know, I mean, it's like when you're doing something like this and it's just a selfless act of generosity, and you're just making, I'm just doing, I'm not completely clear who the audience is all the time, but more and more it kind of unfolds. Even just yesterday, a family came by and they were like, oh, you know, I'm finally meeting you. And, you know, and they've been like, you know, collecting the posters for, you know, some time, and, you know, just to be able to have those moments. And it's clear it's getting out there. And, you know, having people come in for the workshops helps me feel connected, but it's one of those things that's just kind of magical in that way, where you don't really need to know who the recipient is, but that it is meaningful to someone. And I just feel like we need a lot more of that in today's times, you know, to just be human and there for people. So, you know, that's a little bit of what I'm trying to do here. And this picture is actually from inside my house. And if you look closely through the glare in the back, you will see another poster, which I did not print, which was given to my husband and I as a wedding present. And the title, it says on it, "Happiness, we're all in it together." And my friend found this posted under a bridge somewhere, you know, covered with dirt, climbed up there, pulled it down, and this is what he gave us as a wedding gift. And so I look at this every day, and, you know, it's it's a good leading mantra, because we all are here together. And, you know, doing projects like the Fresh Prints box, or even these other art boxes, which I have since subsequently found in the East Bay, we are able to connect with our community and really be together, you know, and support each other. So I would encourage you all to find ways of generosity that you can engage with within your communities, no matter how small it is. I think you'll find that it's very satisfying. And I want to thank all of the artists and writers and people that have contributed things to the Fresh Prints box. It's been a delight to be able to have these things available to people in our community. And I think with that, we can move to some questions if people have some questions for me.
I'm back.
He's back.
So I am back. We do have some time for questions because we want to make sure there's time for the folks here in the room to come up and look at some of the posters that you've brought with you. But maybe we should start to see if there are any questions here in the room. We're going to keep this up for the folks on Zoom for just another minute or two, and then we'll take it down so you can get a big shot of our faces as we talk a little bit to you. So any questions here in the room? Anybody want to start?
Yeah, but I have a question for Thea. Is your business growing now that COVID's receding?
Yes, things are definitely back online. I mean, in person, I guess, you know, but it's definitely, you know, people are doing more events again. So I'm definitely seeing an uptick in, you know, commercial printing again for events, or, you know, business cards or other, you know, art project ephemera for sure. And, you know, still keeping more workshops, you know, going, and, you know, trying to have more events in the studio, because now I've sort of had a little taste of the community, and also my neighbors have kind of embraced me as well. So it's, you know, there's definitely a lot more things happening.
Lee, did you have a question?
Do you feel like you might have introduced some people more to letterpress printing, that there is maybe a little more interest from just I guess your average Joe, you know, instead of people who are actively looking to get into letterpress?
Yeah, so the questions that Lee's asking is if the project has generated more interest in letterpress printing, and I would definitely agree. You know, and having the door open to the studio in a neighborhood, people can kind of come by and see the equipment. And for a lot of people, I mean, they didn't even know that this was how things were produced. And so this has been another, you know, amazing aspect of this community-based work, is it's the first time people have seen this kind of printing. They didn't even know that you would set individual letters to create, you know, text. They thought you just push go on your printer. So it's definitely very enlightening for a lot of people, young and old.
Great. Just going to stop that share so folks can see us big on their screen. Now, Kathleen, did you have a question?
Well, I have a comment, and that is, you might remember the old line that freedom of the press belongs to those who own a press. And I think by opening up your press room to a lot of people, you're showing people, you know, what the advantages of letterpress printing is, and why you want to get your hands inky. And I'm also just wonderfully happy to see what a difference it makes to print things. You know, the wood type makes so much more of an impact for a simple phrase than just, you know, spray painting it on the wall. And, you know, so just thank you for having a open press.
Yes, I would say I wholeheartedly agree. You know, it's been really nice to, you know, bring people into this shop and have them actually decide what the phrase is going to be. And like they're choosing what is going to be said is really interesting process. And also even working with a group of people intimately and designing something on press, you know, is, you know, really good for all of us, or like getting back our social skills, you know? So it's been really enjoyable.
Okay, so you mentioned, I have any other questions here? I have a couple questions, and some of them are like technical or
Okay.
specifics, and there's one or two on the chat that are specific as well. So you mentioned you acquired all of this wood type. Are you only working in wood type, or are you working in other type as well?
That's a great question. I have wood type, and then I have also some metal type that I'm using. And you'll notice sometimes, whether you're looking at the snail mail or some of these posters, you have to make design decisions based on what you have access to. And so sometimes you don't have enough sorts or enough letters to actually set, you know, whatever it is that you're intending to set. So that might change your layout depending on, you know, what you have available. So that's
Well, yeah,
always fun.
and Chris Steinauer mentions the challenges of using wood type with metal type in one piece, and in terms of how you lay that out and how you get them to the same size, you know, the same height when you're printing.
Yes, can be some height differentials when you're printing with different types of materials. So it does take a little bit of patience. And as I said before, a little bit of slapdash quality. You know, like this is not intended to be like high quality, you know. I mean, I'm hoping people will save these for a lifetime, but you know, they're not the most refined printing that you're going to find from my studio.
So the next part of that question, because we talked about wood type, metal type, Legos. Like,
Legos.
Tell us about how that works and how you came upon like starting to work with Legos for your.
Yeah, so Legos is definitely something I've been having a lot of fun with. Probably printing with Legos for like, I'm gonna guess based on my son's age, probably 10 years. And it's not my idea. You know, I again saw it online and I was like, oh, that's something that I can do with my son. So I called 3M. They make adhesives. And so I said, I want to glue ABS plastic, which is what, you know, the Legos are made out of, and wood together. I need it to be really flat. And they connected me to a adhesive engineer. You can call and talk to an adhesive engineer. It's pretty cool. So anyway, so I learned how to make these Lego bases that I could then lock up in the press. And I'm printing with the tile pieces.
Okay. So that Biden 2020 was an example.
Yes, that was Legos.
Yeah. Was that well received? Not the political side of it, just the
Legos.
The Lego side of printing.
I think people love the
That's
Legos,
pretty
and it's
interesting.
very approachable. And I do some workshops in Lego printing. If you're interested, it's super fun and very accessible for everyone.
Allison is asking a very specific question about the wood type. Like, what type of wood is actually in the wood type that you're using?
It's usually end grain maple, I think. And some of the type that I acquired actually dates back to the late 1800s. It's William Page type. So it's very old, which is very cool.
There's a question about printing t-shirts.
Yes.
Are you printing t-shirts too?
I can print t-shirts. I usually use someone that's really set up for printing t-shirts well, for the ones that I'm selling. But I mean, I could print t-shirts, and I have done all of the printmakings, you know, screen printing, etching, you know, lithography, all.
You do it all.
I
is
do
what
them
you're
all.
saying.
Yeah.
So there, I have a question about the archive. There's a lot of posters here.
Yeah.
Is there an archive of all of the posters that you've done? Is there
That's a
an
great
index or an exhibition planned, or all of the above?
I don't know. I mean, there could be. I think I have at least one of most of them. There may be a couple that, I don't have. And then there's other projects that other artists contributed to, or like there was a high school project. Kellyanna, another local artist, her class brought projects. And so I had a couple pieces from students. I don't have any of those. But, I have most everything.
This is Kelsey writes, not a question, just a comment. You are wonderful.
Oh,
So I did that was just next on my list to talk, but thank you for contributing to a new generation of letterpress fans and possibly printers. There is a question about the other art boxes that
Yes.
you've come
oh
across.
yeah, here.
So we don't have
Oh,
that.
wait, I
We're
can't
not
go
gonna
back.
get- yeah,
Okay.
we're not gonna go
We're
back. to
not
that.
gonna go in back. We're not going back.
But there were like 3 different art boxes that you showed us.
Yes.
Who's doing those? Are you connected with those
Um,
people? Are you putting your materials?
I
your
did
work
put
in
some
those?
materials in some of the local
Okay.
boxes. I like to, share. Because maybe they don't make it over, it's like, different neighborhood, different people.
Sure.
Maybe it sits with someone. So yeah, and I mean, I'm sure there's so many more, and I even know of a couple others that I didn't post. One of them is at the Girl Garage, which is like a girl tool
Oh, yeah, like
workplace.
industrial,
They learn woodworking and stuff in Berkeley.
industrial arts.
So
Any questions here in the room? I have one last question, I think, online, unless anybody is going to try to get another question in there before I will wrap up. How do you finance all of this work for these?
that is a
posters?
great question. Sometimes people donate paper. So if anybody has any paper donations they'd like to give to the cause, I'll gladly accept them. And some of the workshops that I host when I have a fresh prints workshop in my studio, the proceeds are going to support the paper. Basically, we have to fund the paper because I just want to be able to freely flow them out into the community and not stress about, how I'm going to pay for it,
Right.
and hopefully maybe one day I'll, write a grant and, I'll
Well,
get
and
some
then
more
the
dollars.
postage part is also a consideration, right? To print the stamps. that you
Right.
did. So
Yeah.
paper and stamps funding
Yeah.
is a thing.
Yeah.
What an inspiring message. Thank you. And thank you for your wonderful example of generosity. But I have one more question. These workshops that you're talking about, events in your shop, workshops in your shop, how do those work? How do you find people who want to do that? How many people can you accommodate? And are you doing mostly broadside projects or card projects? Like, tell us a little bit about that in case someone might be
yeah.
interested.
So the workshops in my studio usually range between, I would say, 4 and 8 people most of the time. If you're interested, you can either sign up on, my mailing list. You can send me an email. That's so crazy. Yeah, you can send me a postcard with your email and then I'll add you to my list.
Right. You can contact me and I can connect you with Thea as well.
Yeah.
To get connected with a workshop or an event
Yeah.
in your space.
Yeah. And then of course, social media is a great place. I always post there. So you'll find things there for sure.
We're gonna tell people
Yeah,
about
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So if you're seeing this in the room, we have a keepsake to share with everyone who is here. Thea has provided this wonderful letterpress card. I guess it's a card, small broadside that says "We are all in it together." Kavamore Press on it, so we can make sure everyone who is here gets a copy of this. If you are still with us online and you are really interested enough to get one of these, you could email me, kevin@bccbooks.org. I will have a small handful of some that I can send out, first come, first serve. So if you'd like one of these, please shoot me an email and I can connect you with one of these cards. So that concludes, I think, our presentation. Let's all thank our incredible presenter this evening, Thea Sizemore. Thank you so much for doing this. I know it's been a long time in the making to have this happen, so thank you. And thank you to everyone who is joining us here in the club rooms and for joining us on Zoom this evening. You can join us for our next in-person and virtual event that is here in person in San Francisco on Monday, October 16th. So that's 2 weeks from now at 6 o'clock. It's another book artist talk, and it's called Picture Book Talk. The speaker is photographer and teacher David Wing, who will be coming to speak with us. You can register for that event online at bccbooks.org/programs, or in any of the emails that you might be getting from the Book Club of California. There's always a register for the next event in there. So please join us for our next event here at the Book Club, online or in person. We'd love to see you. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Thea, for being here. Be well.